Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English Pod. My name is Marco.
And I'm Erica.
And today we have a special lesson for all our sci-fi or science fiction fans.
Yes, and actually one special user was the inspiration for this lesson.
Right.
So Wolfgang,
Exactly.
this one is for you.
Well, sci-fi is very popular. Star Trek, Star Wars.
Yep.
And, well, there are some really interesting words that, well, maybe you wouldn't use in real life or in normal circumstances, but you do want to understand these movies or why they say these words, right?
So we're going to look at some
Dialogue.
sci-fi language in this lesson. But before we start, let's look at...
And in vocabulary preview today, we have one phrase only.
That's right. Unidentified spacecraft.
Okay, so unidentified,
You don't know which one it is.
you don't know the name, you don't know the identity.
Yes.
And a spacecraft.
A spacecraft is a vehicle that travels in space.
Okay, also known as a spaceship.
That's right.
Actually, this is interesting because the word UFO,
Yes.
that comes from...
Unidentified flying object.
Exactly.
So unidentified spacecraft and an unknown vehicle flying in space.
Right, a UFO. Have you ever seen a UFO?
No.
Oh, that's too bad.
Have you?
Of course, hasn't everyone?
All right. Well, I think the people in our dialogue may or may not have seen a UFO. So why don't we take a listen?
They are breaking through. Central blasters to full power.
Excellent job. Search the ship. She's gotta be in here somewhere. Bring her to me.
Lord Hater, we have a survivor here.
Where is she? Don't make me destroy you. Tell me where she is.
Not so fast. She will no longer be your prisoner. It's time you and I settled this once and for all.
You are unwise to think you can defeat me. You know nothing of the power of the obscure side.
We will stop you.
Lord Hater, we have an unidentified spacecraft taking off from the rear dock. They somehow managed to escape our tractor beam.
After them.
They're accelerating towards the speed of light. We lost them, sir.
So a really cool Lord Hater, huh? The music and everything. Well, you may have noticed that it's similar
Other
to
example.
a certain movie out there.
I don't know. I mean, seems quite original to me.
But everything for educational purposes.
That's right.
Okay, so we saw some words that were maybe a little bit difficult, so let's take a look at these now in language takeaway.
Language takeaway.
Well, I guess in the dialogue, the bad guys were breaking through.
Breaking through.
Breaking through.
In the simple present, it would be...
To,
Okay, break through. And what does that mean?
well, let's listen to some examples to help us find out.
Example 1.
After 15 minutes, the workers broke through the wall and rescued everyone from the fire.
Example 2. He is such a good player. He broke through the entire defense. Example 3.
They are breaking through our impenetrable wall! Run!
All right, so it's kind of like to enter by force somewhere.
Yeah, to maybe break some glass and come into a room or something like
Okay,
that.
Break through.
Yeah.
All right, so Lord Hater had a fight with his enemy, and he said he wants to settle this.
To settle this.
Settle.
So what do you do when you settle something?
Well, when you settle something is you end a fight or a dispute
Or an argument.
or an argument
Mhm.
or a problem.
Yeah. When you settle an argument, does everyone always agree?
No, not always.
Right.
Sometimes you are forced to agree.
Okay.
Not everyone agrees, but you have no other choice.
So it's a little bit different from reaching an
Vocabulary preview.
agreement because there's usually a winner and a loser.
Right, exactly. Well, now another very popular word, and within sci-fi, is this word a...
Tractor beam.
Now, I'm not sure if this really exists in real life.
Well, I've never heard of it.
But a tractor beam in sci-fi movies is like this invisible force that grabs an object and doesn't let it escape and brings it towards another spaceship.
So almost like a rope that you can't see.
Right, and it brings it in. So the spaceship managed to escape their tractor beam.
I think that is definitely not true.
Well, maybe, I don't know, but in sci-fi you will always hear this tractor beam.
Now let's move on to our final word. The spaceship was accelerating towards the speed of light.
Accelerating.
Accelerating.
To accelerate.
That's right.
So that means to increase speed, right?
Is to go faster.
To go faster. So if you are in your car
You want to accelerate so you can pass another car.
Okay. Or even when you stop at a red light and it turns green.
You got to accelerate.
Okay. To accelerate. Let's listen to our dialogue again, and then we'll come back and take a look at some of the phrases that came up in this dialogue.
They are breaking through. Set your blasters to full power.
Excellent job. Search the ship. She's gotta be somewhere. Bring her to me.
Lord Hater, we have a survivor here.
Where is she? Don't make me destroy you. Tell me where she is.
Not so fast. She will no longer be your prisoner. It's time you and I settled this once and for all.
You are unwise to think you can defeat me. You know nothing of the power of the obscure side.
We will stop you!
Lord Hater, we have an unidentified spacecraft taking off from the rear dock. They somehow managed to escape our tractor beam.
After them!
They are accelerating towards the speed of light. We lost them, sir.
Well, great. I think that's a little bit more clear this time. But like Marco said, I want to look at now some phrases that you might hear in a sci-fi context.
Fluency builder.
The first phrase that we can take a look at, and maybe it looks a little bit strange. He said, she will no longer be your prisoner. No longer be. So what does he mean by no longer? Anymore, right?
Yeah, so you will not be my prisoner anymore.
Okay. So how would I use it in this form, no longer be?
You've always got to use it in the future tense.
Okay.
So she'll no longer be your prisoner. I will no longer be your employee.
Okay. Or I can say, I will no longer be your boyfriend.
Okay, so it's always will no longer be. It's always in the future.
Okay.
One more thing, Marco. Is this quite commonly used or maybe a little bit formal?
I think it's a little bit formal and it's very, I don't know, to a certain point poetic.
Yeah,
right?
which I think is why we hear it a little bit more often in sci-fi movies.
All right, so no longer be. What about our next phrase?
Nothing of the power of the obscure side.
Okay.
You know nothing of.
So again, it's very poetic.
Yeah.
I think.
Basically meaning you don't know about.
You don't know about.
Yeah.
So again, let's take a look at how you would use it. You know nothing of, and then
Science fiction.
you know nothing of science fiction.
Yeah.
Very good. So you would use a noun afterwards.
Exactly.
So interesting phrases.
Again, formal and probably quite often used in science fiction movies.
But now you can understand when they use some of these words that maybe are a little bit difficult and very common in these types of movies.
Now let's go to our last phrase. Then this one
Vocabulary
actually can be
preview.
used in many different circumstances. Let's settle this once and for all.
Okay, so we saw the verb, we saw the word settle already. Now let's settle this once and for all.
Once and for all.
So what does that mean?
Finally. That's right. Forever.
Okay, so once and for all, forever. So why don't we listen to some other examples of how we can use this phrase once and for all in different contexts?
Example 1. I'm fed up with arguing about this. Let's just settle the argument once and for all. Example 2.
He claims his photographs prove once and for all that UFOs do exist.
Example 3. I told him once and for all that I don't want to be his girlfriend anymore.
So now I think it's clear we've seen a lot of words, we've seen a lot of phrases. Let's listen to our dialogue one more time.
They are breaking through. Set your blasters to full power.
Excellent job. Search the ship. She's gotta be in here somewhere. Bring her to me.
Lord Hater, we have a survivor here.
Where is she? Don't make me destroy you. Tell me where she is.
Not so fast. She will no longer be your prisoner. It's time you and I settled this once and for all.
You are unwise to think you can defeat me. You know nothing of the power of the obscure side.
We will stop you.
Lord Hater, we have an unidentified spacecraft taking off from the rear dock. They somehow managed to escape our tractor beam.
After them.
They are accelerating towards the speed of light. We lost them, sir.
So are you a big sci-fi fan?
I think as you can tell, no. Actually, I've seen some of the Star Wars movies, but everyone that I've watched, I've fallen asleep in the middle of.
Really?
Even in the movie theater. I fell asleep in the movie theater watching Star Wars.
Wow, was it too boring?
It was too boring.
Well, you're not really into the fantasy side.
No, I'm the whole time I'm sitting there going, this cannot happen.
Well, that's why it's called science fiction, right?
Yes.
But it is interesting to some people, and well, behind Star Wars, there is a huge culture. Even some people know some of the languages or symbols that are used in it, or the names of some of the robots and models of spacecraft.
Well, maybe we'll have to come up with Star Wars pod.
Exactly. Well, that's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed our lesson. And of course, if you have questions or comments, you can leave them in a comment section on our website, englishpod.com.
Well, thanks for listening, you guys. And until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Second paragraph in the dialogue.
Welcome, everyone. Ready to dive into some awesome sci-fi vocab?
Sounds fun.
Our source today is, get this, another podcast.
Okay.
But it's all about teaching English with sci-fi, so very meta.
I like it.
We'll be looking at some cool terms like unidentified spacecraft, classic UFO stuff.
Ah, right.
Other
And that
example.
abbreviation is interesting, too.
For sure, like we all picture a UFO instantly, but the full phrase is more mysterious, I guess.
Exactly. It leaves more to the imagination. Unidentified is way broader.
Then there's breaking through, which they use for like entering by force.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And that has so many uses in sci-fi. It could be a spaceship, a hacker.
Definitely. It's about overcoming obstacles, which in sci-fi can be anything, right?
Totally. And sometimes that leads to needing to settle something, but
But in sci-fi, settling doesn't always mean peace, does it?
no way. Often it's about who wins decisively, even brutally.
Makes you think, what does winning even mean in those worlds?
Heavy stuff, and of course we got to talk about tractor beams.
Oh, the classic. That's become such a standard sci-fi idea.
It really has. Shows how fascinated we are with controlling forces like that.
For sure. Harnessing something so powerful is scary, but also really cool.
One phrase that stood out to me, it's kind of formal. She will no longer be a prisoner.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Sci-fi does that. Big, dramatic language.
Like the stakes are always super high, so even the way people talk reflects that.
Exactly. Now this line, I gotta admit, made me laugh a little.
About which one?
You know nothing of the power of the obscure side.
Oh yeah, the obscure side does sound a bit silly out of context.
But that's how sci-fi gets you hooked. It's vague.
Vocabulary
hints at
preview?
bigger mysteries.
It's like a dare to the audience, figure out what the obscure side really is.
And then there's that classic showdown line. Gotta love it.
Let's settle this once and for all.
All about finality. Like, this is it. Everything's on the line.
You know a big fight's coming and it'll change everything.
Classic sci-fi trope keeps us on the edge of our seats.
Works every time.
And that anticipation is often tied to the setting, those sci-fi worlds.
Right, like even though we say UFO all the time now,
Yeah.
that full phrase,
Dialogue.
unidentified spacecraft, is way more out there,
Totally. Hints at something truly alien, not just some lights in the sky.
Makes you wonder what else is out there, beyond what we know.
And that ties into the whole breaking through thing we were talking about.
Yeah, like it's not always literal force, but that drive to overcome anything.
It's like a core human thing, wanting to push further, discover more.
And sci-fi lets us explore that, the good and the bad that can come from it.
Exactly. It's like a safe space to think about the consequences of our own tech.
Which can get pretty complex, especially when it comes to conflict, how we settle things.
Right, because in sci-fi, settling rarely means a peaceful agreement.
No way. It often comes at a cost, like the podcast said.
It makes you think about what justifies the means when you have all that tech, the power.
Oh yeah, so many stories about weapons, AI, stuff that could go wrong easily.
And speaking of powerful tech, gotta bring up tractor beams again.
I know, such a simple idea, but used in so many cool ways.
It's the imagination at work, one word, and everyone pictures it.
From grabbing asteroids to like manipulating tiny objects, it's wild.
Shows how a single term can spark so many ideas, and that makes me think,
What about,
we've talked about sci-fi making new words, but what about using old ones in new ways?
ooh, good point. Sci-fi writers are great at that.
Like taking a word we know and giving it extra meaning in their world.
Like, remember the phrase, she will no longer be a prisoner.
Yeah.
Sounds simple, but depending on the context, it could mean so many things.
Totally. Is it a real prison, a mental one, or like being trapped by society's rules?
That's where the language gets subtle. One word hinting at deeper stuff.
Sci-fi writers are pros at that, making you think beyond the surface.
And sometimes those deeper meanings are hidden on purpose, like with that obscure sideline.
Ah, that one. It's like a challenge to the audience, a little puzzle.
Like the writers are saying, we're not giving you all the answers. Figure it out. Yeah, it's like breadcrumbs leading you deeper into the story.
That's what makes sci-fi so cool. It's not just about spaceships. It's about the ideas.
It makes you think and question stuff. And the Source podcast even talked about Star Wars.
Oh, right, how it's become part of how we talk, even outside of sci-fi.
Like lightsaber, everyone knows that.
Exactly. Star Wars is huge for bringing sci-fi words into everyday language.
He shows how a good story can make something new feel familiar, even if it's from another galaxy.
And that familiarity makes even weird concepts easier to handle.
Like the Force, that could be so abstract, but Star Wars makes it relatable.
So we're comfy with it, even though it's a mystical energy field or whatever.
And it all comes back to language, like that line, "Let's settle this once and for all."
That one. It's not just about ending a fight.
It feels bigger, like we need things to be settled, especially in sci-fi.
Because the stakes are so high, you need that sense of closure.
Like drawing a line, okay, the past is done, now we move on.
And the language itself reinforces that. Strong words, like a statement.
So, wrapping up our sci-fi language deep dive, what have we learned?
It's not just made-up words. It's a way to explore, to ask questions.
It can introduce us to new ideas or twist the meaning of words we thought we knew.
Sci-fi language can change how we see the world and make us imagine amazing futures.
So next time you see a weird phrase in a sci-fi book or movie,
don't just skim over it. Think about it. There might be more to it than you realize.
And that's our show for today. Thanks for joining our deep dive.
Keep exploring those sci-fi worlds. There's always something new to discover.
And until next time, happy reading and watching, everyone.